probably want to close the doors.
All righty.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to get going here in just a moment. Thank you for being here.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Georgina.
Yes.
He is. Right here.
Right front, right up front.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's doesn't matter.
Oh, it doesn't matter?
Yeah, this is a boardroom.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
Let's go back.
Okay.
All right.
All right. I think we're ready. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Guardians of the Grid. It's great to see many of you here. We have nursing students, we have cybersecurity students, and others, students from around campus, and maybe some community members. We're all coming together to explore a topic that connects us in more ways that we may think. Today, we're going to talk about what happens when systems that support healthcare, like the power, data, or communication networks, either break down or come under attack. When critical infrastructure fails, it's not just a technical issue, it's something that can directly affect patient care, safety, and trust. This event is about understanding those connections and learning how each of us, no matter our field, plays a role in protecting the systems people depend on. You'll hear ideas about resilience, cybersecurity, and systems thinking, and how combining these skills can prepare us to respond smarter and stronger when challenges arise. So thank you for being here, for your curiosity, for being part of the next generation of problem solvers who will help keep our communities safe, healthy, and connected. Our moderators for today are Dr. Alan Foote, our wonderful computer information management instructor, and Dr. Jeff Barnett, our wonderful computer science instructor. That's me, Dr. Linda Call. I'm Assistant Dean of Health and Wellness and Director of the Nursing Program. Sophia Mamoun could not be here, but she helped put this together, so we wish her well. Also, we have a whole panel of students. So we want to welcome Benham Haynes, John Drexter, Kenneth Strawn, who are from cybersecurity. They're our cybersecurity students. Welcome.
Hello.
Good evening.
We have
Good evening.
Abby Perez, Valeria Flores, Julie Trong, Britt Foyston, and Riley Hansen from the nursing program. Welcome. These are our question themes for today. We're going to look at insider threats and human error, external attacks on hospital systems, system dependencies and power reliability, medical devices and patient safety, physical security meets cybersecurity, phishing and social engineering, vendor and third-party risk, cross-sector failures and public health impact, data integrity and restoration, and incident response and role clarity. So there's so much to cover. All right, so I guess we can get started with looking into these different topics.
Yeah. I'll just stand up to the podium. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey everyone, good afternoon. Can everyone hear? Can I have it?
Loud
All
and
right.
clear.
Okay, so before I ask this first question, I want just to frame things. I'd like to have everyone imagine just for a moment, you know, to be impacted by any of this, this critical infrastructure failure, especially in a hospital. It's not just cyber. While we will use some cyber terms, we're going to try to keep it generalized, okay? Because this is more operational, what we're thinking of. So when you're thinking of your and for the audience, right, we do ask for you guys to interact as well. Just think operationally, okay? Because these things impact every aspect of our emergency room care, okay? So the first question is this, and I'll first address it to the cybersecurity students, and I have to say, I call them experts now. These guys have completed the ethical hacking. They've completed, well, they're almost finished with the digital forensics. I'm so proud of them with the competitions that they do. So these students actually have a wealth of knowledge in both academia and in competitions. Now, as far as actually working in a hospital, I'm not misquoting, you guys have no experience, right, working in a hospital? Kenny, Benham? Okay. All right, so I'll first ask the question to the cybersecurity panelists, and then I'll follow it up with answer the same question over to the nursing students. And what I would like is there to be interaction between the different panelists to generate the conversation. So the question is this: if failures occur in power, water, or communications, how would that amplify risk to hospital operations, triage, and patient outcomes? How can cyber and clinical professionals collaborate to sustain care? So that's two questions. And so with that, I'll just go ahead and just start with Kenny, and we'll go down to John and then Benham.
So it really depends on the failure that, like, on whatever, the power, water, communications. It really depends on which one of the, like, each one of those has its own unique impacts. If power failure, obviously no equipment is going to run, and that means no power to life support equipment, and that could be deadly for quite a few people. Water, if having a hospital with contaminated water, that could spread infection. Communications, if no nurses or doctors communicate, that delays patient, like they can't get in, and as far as cyber and clinical professionals, how can we collaborate? Best course of action would be, as far as proactive measures, having the healthcare as in terms of the possible penetration testing clients out there. Healthcare really should be at the top of the list, because the more proactive measures you can take to close the gaps in your network, the better off you'll be.
Okay. All right. John?
Yeah, I'll add to that by saying that basically what Kenny was saying, but it would be a cascading catastrophe. So, like power loss will, the ventilators will stop working within 30 minutes. Water shutdowns will disable the operating rooms, the dialysis machines. Communication failures will eliminate electronic health record access and coordination. And basically what Kenny was saying, then patient mortality increases by 35 to 41% during these events.
Okay. All right, Benham?
I think they pretty much covered most of that, but if also say electricity goes down, I know that there was a major attack in 2018 where it wasn't really electricity, but it was a ransomware attack called WannaCry.
Oh yeah.
And basically everything was encrypted. They couldn't use any of their machines. And just like if the electricity went down, if there's no electronic systems up, how are you getting medication to your patients? How are you pulling up patient charts before injecting somebody with something that they might be allergic to, but you don't know because it's on the record on the computer? So just simple things like that is not simple, but things like that can really be affected by electricity.
Okay. So before we transition over to the nursing students, I would like to kind of help that transition. In that one thing that is common between both fields of study is something that, well, in cybersecurity, we call it the CIA triad. I know in hospital lingo, it's something very similar, which is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And these, aspects, power, water, data, they affect all three of those. And, from the cyber side, a hacker can impact all three. A hacker can hack the network grid, the power grid, and shut down transformers, shut down water supply. They can actually do that. They can hack in and actually, and it's been done, actually change room temperatures. They can hack into the HVAC system of a lot of hospitals and tweak with the atmospherics. So for the nursing students, right, I want you just kind of, and I know you've already had time to think about this, but operationally, it's, if any of these things happen, the impact to the ER room, or from your experience, if you guys can speak to that, or if you've seen any of it, or at least talked about it, just go ahead, and I'll go ahead and pass it to, and I'm sorry, I don't have the names, and yes, so just go ahead and you guys just volunteer response.
My name's Valeria. I'm one of the nursing students, and I also work at a hospital. If something like that were to happen, where there was a power outage, all of our monitors, they would be out. It's actually not, the power hasn't gone out at my hospital, but there has been some network issues where we'd have to round on our patients constantly because there's no communication of which patient is going into a rhythm or what have you. So we're constantly having to go into every room and make sure that they're okay. When it comes to the power, the beds are powered by the electricity. So if a patient falls or gets out of bed and they're a fall risk, they can get injured very critically, and then we wouldn't know because that bed wouldn't work to alert us of their fall. Yeah.
Okay. Any other volunteers from the nursing side?
I do also work at a hospital, but we don't really I haven't had experience in terms of a power outage. We tend to have everything plugged into either a red socket where it's an emergency in case the power outage did go off, that there's a backup generator that would continuously have the monitors or the pumps continue running. There was I guess in 2023, an Adventist Health White Memorial in Los Angeles. Their backup generators had failed, and the healthcare providers, the nurses and the doctors and everybody had to work together. And they even gave birth to a mother using a flashlight. So that was an interesting case too I brought up.
Okay. All right. And any of the other panelists want to contribute?
Yeah,
Sorry, you can go first.
I'll chime in quickly. So we talked about disruption of life support equipment and the loss of access to the healthcare, the computer system, where we can see all of our patients' information, their allergies, what medications they're taking. Also, we wouldn't be able to, our medication machine is all power. So, and it's refrigerated. So not only would we lose power, but we would lose refrigeration. So special critical medicines such as insulin, which some needs to be refrigerated, we wouldn't have access to that. And then as a nurse caring for a patient and the power goes out, what do we do with our patient once it's out? Where are we supposed to transfer them because the elevators are power? So if we don't have a good system in place for a backup generator or something else that can be deployed, maybe the cybersecurity guys know about the phone system. Is that a VoIP system? So would that go down too?
Yes,
That would go down.
Okay.
absolutely.
So you'd have to, I'm sorry.
So
Go
we
ahead.
would need to have a backup phone system that doesn't violate HIPAA.
Right. You'd have to, in those situations, staff starts relying on their cell phones, which is a violation of HIPAA. So you're Absolutely right.
Yeah, you'd need to have some kind of you need to basically go back to pagers.
Walkie-talkies, that's an idea.
Yeah, it's, if I can add just a couple of things. So this past spring, Saddleback sent, as a part of the Department of Homeland Security grant, which has been put on pause with the administration, but Saddleback sent twice myself and other faculty to assess the situation in Guam, which was in response to something called Volt Typhoon. And in that disaster that happened, the hospital, they lost their power. The power was actually, the power grid itself was actually not in too bad shape, but the hospital itself was somewhat isolated and they lost power. The internet service provider lost power, okay? Which the hospital itself, during that typhoon, they had to treat, the ER was open and they didn't have access to their billing. They didn't have access to patient records. Everything was on the cloud. And, that's a very isolated area, so they don't have a lot of backups, local backups. And so they lost all of that information. In just a second, Ryan, I'll get your question. And so I think they said they lost about $60 million worth of cost for water. And again, I'm talking out of my depth. I don't know how the billing works for hospitals, but they said that the insurance companies would not let them backdate the billing. And so with that, obviously, they had backup generators, but those things require diesel, and the diesel only lasts so long. When I was on active duty, I was in charge of Al Assad Air Base, all of it, with regards to the hospital and the critical infrastructure. We had 4 generators that would support basically a city of 22,000 military personnel, to include a hospital, which was at level 2? I think, yeah, level 2. It was a level 2 hospital, which I'm forgetting what the definition of that is, but they could come in and do all sorts of surgeries, okay? But yet, the power gets shut down. We have to constantly, our fuel supply to keep that one hospital running we were going through like 1 million gallons of diesel in like it was crazy, because those things are just consuming the diesel at such a rapid rate, and then they get hot. We're talking multi-million-dollar generators. I don't think the hospitals have that level. Maybe they do, but to keep those things running for more than 24 hours, it's a Herculean effort. And, if you don't practice those, or if you don't practice if we didn't practice, we didn't have to practice, it happened a lot, but I would imagine if you don't practice, those contingency plans, there's definitely going to have impact. Now, I think Ryan had a question, and then but then I have to defer to Linda, who's going to be our subject matter expert on hospital operations. Yes, go ahead, Ryan. What's your question?
I'm gonna give him a mic.
Ryan, if you could hold
Hang
just
on
one
for
second.
just a minute. I want to use the mic.
And I'm going to go straight back to you as soon as he's done with his question. Okay.
So hypothetically, let's say a patient.
It's not.
There we go.
Well, just speak with your outside voice. I think we can hear you. Yeah.
So hypothetically, let's say a patient is resuscitated and the main power grid goes down. Is there a period of time where the backup generator has to boot up and there's no power within that stretch?
It's seconds.
So, Linda, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I think I'm the only working.
Right. I can't give you an exact amount of time, but it's seconds. It's probably less than a minute. that's what it's supposed to be, but it doesn't always happen that quickly. So,
That's why that's why I was mentioning that's why there really needs to be a lot of large batteries and solar in hospitals. I think would solve that problem. You know.
yeah, so usually what happens, because I've been in the hospital before when the power went out, and it was just like 2 seconds or so, and everything started working again. But the red sockets Julie was talking about, or was it? Yeah, those are all connected to the generator power if electricity goes out. So all important things are supposed to always be plugged in to the red outlets, like a ventilator or the IV pumps or any important machinery, like the Pyxis machine, that's where the medications come out of. So anything that's vital for patient safety has to be connected to a red outlet.
Nice.
Okay, so let's see. Does anyone else have any, or does anyone else have any questions to the any of the panelists or to Ms. Linda for question number 1? Okay, all right. Let's transition to question number 2.
Okay, here we go. All right. I am Dr. Alan Foote. I am also a CIM instructor and involved in a lot of the things associated with computer systems. And the question number 2 that we've got here is, how could a power outage or loss of internet access impact integrity of medical records or monitoring systems? What real-world backup procedures exist to protect patient safety during downtime? And one of the things that we really didn't talk about in the first question was about monitoring systems and the integrity and connecting to the internet. And certainly that's what we're trying to get at here, a little bit more of a push in that direction. All right. I think what I'm going to jump out of sequence, and I'm going to go and check with the nursing students first on accessing the integrity of medical records. Medical records are certainly an important part of this. And if the internet is down, what are you going to do? So can any of the nursing students sort of want to comment on that?
So one of the backups, I was working as an EMT about a year ago, and I wish I could tell you exactly what happened, but it was one of the major systems mainly affected a lot of airports. One of the hospitals I was at the time, their EPCRs went down. So they lost access to all patient records while the system, it was some problem with an update. Again, I wish I could tell you more about exactly what happened. But the main thing that the hospital staff did was they switched to using their paper charts that they have for all the patients. And given all the experience I've had in the hospitals, we mainly use EPCRs for everything. So switching to trying to figure out paper charts would make all procedures, trying to find patient information, just slower in general. Which I think contributes to those like higher mortality rates during times of crisis when you're having to learn things from scratch, basically.
Thank you. Anybody else that wants to comment on this? Okay, come on up, Linda. Thank you.
So there's something in the hospital called handoff report. So when one nurse is leaving the shift, at the end of the shift, they give a handoff report to the oncoming nurse. And in that report, they're supposed to include the patient's history and the current, orders that the patient is getting and information from the previous shift. So really the offgoing nurse will have a record of everything about that patient, probably written down on their little organizational tool that they use, that they can then communicate to the oncoming nurse. So if you're a good nurse and you you do a really good handoff. You do your patient, you peruse the chart, and you know your patient really well. If everything went out, you would be able to carry on that information to the next nurse. And so that type of information would be carried forward. Also, the patients usually, have a primary doctor who's following them. They don't have a whole bunch of, it's not like every patient in the hospital belongs to one clinician. They have a handful, and they have records also. So it would be a team effort. But important information could be communicated.
Okay, so this is mostly for the cyber panel. Question number 2, with respect to, and it's not just power loss, I want to expand it a little bit to, actual access to the medical records themselves, availability. We're talking about, we've already talked about confidentiality a little bit with the HIPAA, but as far as the integrity of the data, I'm guessing that there's a lot of attempted fraud that happens in every institution with respect to insurance. Okay, but also with respect to the availability of the data, the trustworthiness of the data. So, kind of spinning this in a way where talking about real world backup procedures. But now I'd like for you guys to focus on. Okay, now let's talk about a hacker that is intent on violating the CIA triad, whether it's whether it's the confidentiality of the information that you're trying to access, or it's the integrity of it. Okay, is that data trustworthy? And then, of course, the availability of it if it's blocked. So you guys want to talk a little about that?
I'll start, absolutely. So as far as power outages, affecting integrity, one of the things to note is that they mentioned that all this life-saving equipment is plugged into the red sockets. Well, the computers that they're entering the medical records on aren't as much. So if they're in the middle of typing a medical record into a computer and the power goes out, they're gonna have that work is gonna be lost mid session, and that affects integrity of a lot of stuff. And then as far as an attacker getting into the system, there's many ways that there's many ways that like if they get some kind of malware on there, let's say, and they're able to gain remote access to the systems. They could change, falsify records at will. They could do all kinds of stuff.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Anybody else want to comment, John or Ben?
Yeah. So not just you could take a hacker aside, but if the power of the internet goes out, the restoration point is the most dangerous time. Because when systems come back, they come back out of sync, incorrect timestamps, and data kind of disappears. So that's when offline modes would come into play, or uninterruptible power supplies or UPSs, and those can be plugged into any computer. You could have those on every computer.
Yeah.
Okay. Benham, did you have anything to add, or is it?
I'm okay. They mostly
Okay.
got it. Yeah.
All right. Anybody else on the panel before I give it to the audience for questions? Okay. Any questions from the audience? Okay. All right. Question number 3. Yes, John.
Let me get a mic.
All right, this question is for the cyber guys. So for the issues as far as like getting access to medical records or losing like access to the internet and whatnot, do you think there are other issues that can be fixed? Not like, I mean, like maybe like hardware wise,
I mean,
or
there's,
using different systems?
Yeah, there are like you could put a firewall as far as the hardware level. Really, you'd have to put there you could put a firewall in. You could use EDRs, to monitor, to monitor and stop those things. But there's always, it's a cat and mouse game, because every new measure you put in place is there's someone is going to find a way around.
Like for example, you said like typing, like documents.
Oh, yeah,
and
so like
how, like I have a docking system, like I have a tablet,
Yeah.
that has a battery. Like why
Yeah.
don't you switch up like the hardware like that?
Yeah, you
That
could.
can be-
Yeah, that okay. So you're talking about having using laptops instead of desktops. Yes, that is a possibility, but the way because of regulations, specifically HIPAA, which was mentioned by the nursing students as well. There's actually like it would be for nurses to bring their own laptops and stuff into the place. It would be illegal to and eventually even if the power is out for long enough, those batteries are going to die anyway.
Yeah, it's and we're kind of bleeding almost into the next question, which I'll ask in a minute. But I will comment that it's, again, I have to defer to Linda's expertise in this case. But with regards to bring your own devices or that's not allowed, right? No. Yes.
So, in regards to bringing your own devices, is it not allowed because it can introduce security risks, such as
Yeah.
Yeah, it can introduce security risks. For example, if your personal PC has happens to have malware on it, like that malware could spread to the rest of the company.
Absolutely.
That's definitely one of them. I think another, like the biggest thing is patient confidentiality.
Yeah.
If I go home with a bunch of patient information on this device, who's not to say that somebody else can't access that?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And not only that, but I mean, yeah, if someone had, I mean, one of the biggest things is that if your computer is compromised, it can serve as a pivot point to then allow someone initial access to the network, to map out the network, to start attacking other devices. That's a no-no.
Yeah, these guys in Priya, we'll get your question in just a second. So these guys have actually just learned in digital forensics course, right, how temporary files are saved and how to actually go through, and it's amazing what they can dig out of a machine if they can get their hands on a machine. So someone taking their personal device to work, most companies have they have either SLA or some sort of a acceptable use policy that explains exactly. And some places will allow it, but they have very, very strict requirements. And by the way, if you do bring your own device, keep in mind that legally speaking, that hospital has, if they need to do a digital forensics investigation, your machine is now no longer protected under the Fourth Amendment. Okay, so it's a lot of protections in place for you to not use your personal device, whether it's a computer or a cell phone. Okay, I'll get your question in a second, John. Let's go to Priya. I think you were next.
Yeah, so I guess my question is, in many industries, I know it's kind of theorized that analog systems are more secure because they're more difficult to hack or infiltrate. But also the introduction of IoT devices and smart devices, that's also a risk because those are also very easy to take over by experienced hackers. So what would be, I guess, a good solution for generally what to implement in medical scenarios?
Don't leave the default password.
Well,
I would add to that, and we're going to talk about that in the next an upcoming question. I think it's question number 3. We'll work we'll answer it then.
That's perfectly said. John, you had your hand up.
Yeah, it was like you guys were all going towards like the direction that it has to be your device. Can it not be the company's device, you just leave it when you go home?
Well, that's not, so BYOD, which is bring your own device.
Oh,
So
okay.
there's a company-owned device, which is different, okay?
Yeah.
But, the security protocols, that are in place, I mean, we can't be guaranteed on a personal device, okay? So, and then also it may be that the company, the hospital, in this case, they probably have a policy that, yes, you may have access, or maybe they don't have access to the www. I don't know, but if they do, there may be some limitations on which sites they can go see. There's always the constant threat of data exfiltration and medical. I mean, I'll ask you guys, do you think medical information is valuable?
Absolutely. And another thing back to your original question, even if the devices that have batteries are company provided, say the company provides laptops, tablets, or both, the battery's still going to die anyway after so many hours of an outage.
Well, not just that. If the internet goes down and everybody has a mobile device, that's not going to work. And if the power goes down and everybody has a battery operated device, the router's not going to work. So it's kind of a limiting factor. I'm sure some hospitals do use laptops and tablets, but if the internet goes down or the power goes out, you still have the same. The same sort of things are going to happen, I guess. Does that make sense?
That's what I was going for. Some of these were communications issues, not so much as like, I need information from the internet. Like, what can't you use? Like Bluetooth, maybe? Like, any power outage. And these aren't like permanent solutions.
Yeah, I guess.
Sometimes they have to be temporary patch solutions.
What a hospital could do, what I would think would be the best thing to do if a situation like that were to happen, was to have like some sort of mobile devices, like a tablet, on a mesh network.
Like that. Cool.
Or for a hole-in-one, if instead of having backup generators, if a hospital were to have a combination of a bunch of Tesla Powerwalls and solar, that would be the best move, I think.
Well, guys, if I can just add here, and as we close this question down and move to the second one, but I think you have to remember that the critical path of failure here is the internet service provider.
Yeah.
And so they lose power. It doesn't matter what you have.
No.
I mean, we've all experienced blackouts here in Southern California. I have solar on my house. I have a backup battery that run my server for 3 hours. But guess what? The moment that, within 15 minutes of my neighborhood's lights going out, yes, I have internet for about 15 more minutes than my neighbors. But the moment that outage hits the internet service providers' hardware, and their backup batteries kick in, their backup batteries aren't concerned about my information or yours. Their hardware at the internet service provider is worried about shutting their systems down in a timely manner so that they don't damage their systems. So, it's the critical vulnerability here and that's kind of the whole nature of the discussion today, is that when critical infrastructure fails you, sometimes you're just left without it. And you have to be able to operate, in paper ways, in ways that procedures that the hospitals have. I mean, they have staff on there that have, this is not their first rodeo. They've experienced this. But today's generation, the new students, cyber students and nursing students that are moving into the workforce, have never probably known much of life without the internet. And how do you work with life without the internet, especially in an operational thing like the ER? Yes?
The answer is pretty much you don't.
Well, they did it before.
Well, yeah, they did it before, but businesses and hospitals and government agencies are so dependent on the internet these days to function that without it, it's businesses and hospitals and government agencies are so dependent on the internet to function these days. Like, if they don't have it, they're screwed, dude.
Yeah. I mean, well, Linda, I don't want to say yeah. Linda, would you mind giving your perspective on that very thing?
Well, we used to have books, a thing called books. So like the PDR, book about this thick, you could look up any medication in it. Some people still carry books. Some hospitals still have books. So you could look up on information on book, in an actual book. So I don't know. I mean, it depends on the clinical site, whether they still have paper reference material for the staff.
I'd say that's why it's important that people learn how to, especially students, learn how to look up resources without relying on the internet.
I
Like
agree.
going to the library and getting a book, for example. I mean, the internet's a great tool, but it's not foolproof, like you mentioned.
There was a real world example about this, maybe not in the healthcare industry, but in the auto industry last year or the year before, where there was a ransomware attack that affected thousands of dealerships, and they reverted back to paper. And they were using paper to run credit scores and do loans and everything. And it was affecting the industry for, I think, like a month or so.
You don't, and the thing is, it's not just hackers or ransomware, because that CrowdStrike outage that happened last year in July 2024, it was just one software update, and 34% of the hospitals were affected by that. They just couldn't use their computers, and that's not an internet thing. That's a software patch. Yeah, through Microsoft.
It was actually CrowdStrike is their own. It was one of their own kernel drivers. But yeah, it affected Microsoft. It was pushed to devices, and it had a bug that did something with memory. I'm not going to get into it because it's too technical. But yes, it caused everyone to have an outage.
So yeah, those computers just were not functioning at this point.
Yeah.
That had nothing to do with power or the internet. So there's all these different variables that come into play.
All right, so let's go ahead and move to the next question, which we've kind of covered different aspects of it. Question number 3. So, all right, so the third question is many emergency room devices, ventilators, infusion pumps, cardiac monitors depend on networks. What vulnerabilities might attackers exploit?
Yeah.
And how could that affect direct patient care? Now, let me caveat that. Yes?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Oh, yes.
Sorry.
Okay, sorry. All right, so but let me just mention that. So these guys have had some experience in the sense that they've actually done some competitions recently on was it CPTC? Or, I'm sorry, no, it wasn't. It was the MITRE competition.
Yeah, MITRE ECTF.
Which involved them looking at some of the hardware that gets used inside of medical devices, for example.
Yeah.
So let me, again, pose this question to the cyber side.
Yeah.
Again, many of these devices depend upon networks. Okay, what vulnerabilities might attackers exploit? And how could that affect direct patient care?
So one of the most and I'll start with this one. So these devices, if they're connected to the network, then there's many ways, like too many to count. And if I were to give an example, I might talk over your heads. But I'll give one classic example. Say someone finds their way onto the network and they manage to discover a text file on one of the computers containing a username and password to the admin panel on, say, a ventilator or one of these other devices. They could log into that device remotely and do some and basically weaponize it. And that's really the worst case scenario. It's worse than downtime because the attacker now has full control, and if they don't like the person, they could make it do something to harm them instead of help them.
Okay.
Yeah.
They can flat out kill somebody
Yep.
if they wanted to.
Yeah.
But I was able to do some research on this question, and 75% of infusion pumps have known unpatched vulnerabilities and often run on Microsoft XP with default passwords. I'm not sure, does anybody know when Microsoft XP came out?
Windows XP 2001.
Okay, yeah, so that's how old? 24 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the whole default password, which I think Benham or Kenny mentioned. But yeah, these things can alter medication doses, falsify vital signals, disable alarms.
Yeah. Yes, Ben, go ahead.
So this might be a little technical, but it once you find out and you map out a network and you have this Internet of Things device here, whether it's a ventilator, IV pump, or etc., you can go online, look up known vulnerable CVEs, which is like it's a little code that tells you what could be vulnerable with that machine. There's a program on Linux that's like 2 buttons to exploit those vulnerabilities, which is pretty crazy. Just 2 buttons, enter in the CVE, hit enter.
Yep.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and transition to the nursing students. You guys want to comment, at least maybe your reaction as to those kind of threats?
For me personally, that's kind of scary. Because if we're going in and we know that we set a pump a certain rate and then they're changing it, that can kill our patient, depending on what medication it is. So yeah, that's really scary.
It is, and it's, it's, again, just coming from, what I have seen, I hate to, I don't want to be an alarmist or anything, but man, I'm telling you, it's a lot of responsibility on the information security officer for whoever's running the hospital, and I would not want their job. They could not pay me enough, because the responsibility and the stress of that position, and by the way, an information security officer is not a cyber expert, okay? They're not trained how to harden systems or be pen testers. There's a whole nother category of professionals that does that. So I'd be interested to know, what sort of pen testing maybe that the hospitals have used. Again, that's kind of sensitive. Even if they knew it, I might not tell it, okay? Because it's kind of divulging tactics, techniques, and procedures of the hospital. But if any of the student panelists want to maybe talk about maybe where they've seen some kind of maybe pen testing happening, or hardening, or training, or Linda? Yes, so penetration testing is where you hire, or the company hires someone or a team to go in to their network and pretend to be hackers in a passive way where they're not taking anything down, but then they provide a report on, okay, these are your vulnerabilities. They make recommendations. They don't fix, because then they become liable for that. Well, you've told us and we fixed it and we still got hacked. So the penetration testers do that. And typically that company comes with insurance, because if somebody overlooks something, or their test itself isn't complete, or maybe they overlooked something, it's not foolproof. Because there are ways that hackers come up with every day that are brand new. They're called day zero attacks. But it is really scary. And that's why I think it's important that we had this discussion, or we have this town hall to discuss this, at least for awareness. There's nothing in here that can be done to fix day zero attacks, because we don't know. Like Kenny said, it is a cat and mouse game. But they get into these devices, and our guys were going into devices. There's an yearly competition that they compete in, where they're given these devices. They look like little sticks of chewing gum. They're about this big, but this is the hardware that goes in many of the medical devices, and there's vulnerabilities that are built into in code into those machines. These guys have to go through. They scour the operating system. They scour the code on the operating system And actually, I'll let Kenny, if you want to kind of
Yeah, so we
discuss a little.
do a full code review of the they have a vulnerable example OS that they give us, and we comb through the source code to find all kinds of stuff, and then we design our own better version with less of those vulnerabilities, so to speak.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's
Yeah, so it's basically it's a deep dive into, in the case of a hospital, right? You would say, okay, we want you to look at our networks, our printers, but also we want you to look at our medical devices, which becomes even more expensive, okay? Because it's not cheap. It takes a lot of time and a lot of thoroughness, and to investigate every single type of hardware that you have. It's okay. Kenny and John, I know you guys worked on it before. I mean, how many hours did you guys spend on those devices?
Oh yeah, it's literally a full-time job when the competition is going on.
I think they spent probably around cumulatively around 200 hours, and then that was just on one device.
I would like to say something else too about this, and maybe you guys, this is way above my pay grade, but like that's like if somebody dies in a situation like that, who's to blame? Like that, and that probably is, and the guilt that a nurse or a doctor would feel if something like that was to happen, but and they had nothing to do with it.
Well, it's a great question as far as who's to blame. What's that? Oh, service level agreement. It's well, you want to comment more?
Agreement between the security providers and the hospital administrators. So whatever they have agreed on, so it's I think it depends on.
Yeah. So typically in a situation like this, what would happen is that the hospital probably has cyber insurance to cover certain things. Okay, but that is reactive. Okay, to execute due diligence with respect to hardening the systems, the information security officer is probably going to be the one that everybody looks at and starts, looking at their, at that position, at that person, because someone's going to be, accountability is going to land in somebody's lap, and so then attorneys get involved. Because as Dr. Monfred mentioned, what was the service level agreement between the hardware equipment and the vendor, between the hospital? Because the hospital doesn't have the endless resources to hire pen testers to come in and test all that hardware. So there's going to be big attorney battles, go back and forth, each side looking to point fingers on the other end. And ultimately, the victim, in this case, which is the patient, is the unfortunate victim of that. And I'm sure it's something that's being fought daily. Who's responsible? But you just can't, it's why it's illegal, right? That's why hacking is illegal and people go to prison for that. So
yeah, I've got something to add regarding that. So
Kenny?
One thing regarding the resources to hire, penetration testers or whatnot. I would ask you this: if you can't afford to hire a penetration tester, then how can you possibly afford to pay the ransom that a bad actor would ask for if your systems actually get compromised for real? There's a lot of I think there needs to be I think the priorities need to be straightened out there.
Yes.
I'd also like to add, I guess I just found this out, but so those 75% of the infusion pumps, which I'm not sure what an infusion pump is, but I guess they require FDA reapproval in order to be patched.
So it's not easy to patch it.
It's not easy to patch it. So the hospital can't just say, oh, okay, we're going to patch these vulnerable devices. They can't do it without FDA reapproval.
Yeah.
That's crazy to think about.
Wow. Did you have,
Yeah. So it's for Kenny, is my question. So it's about the penetration testing. You said if you can't afford to hire a penetration tester, you obviously can't afford if your data gets breached. So like let's say worst case scenario, data gets breached and the hacker says, oh, we'll release your data back to you for $12 million. Like what's the success rate of your data getting restored when you actually pay the ransom?
Yeah, the hospital. Yeah, it's not great, but it was addressed. That my point was though, a lot, and this is one thing I've noticed from following the news the past several years in general, is that there are a lot of hospitals out there are actually incentive. This is more so on the CEO, C-suite level. But these companies are actually these healthcare companies are incentivizing ransomware by paying ransoms and at the same time not hiring penetration testers. I think if their networks were, if they hired someone to find all the holes so they can plug them, then it would avert the ransomware catastrophe to begin with.
You would think with how much money we waste on healthcare that we would at least have decent secure systems.
Exactly.
I guess that falls back onto the question: how do you plug a hole of somebody that's like a person? Which goes into the next question. I think the majority of these ransomware attacks happen via phishing or social engineering.
Yeah.
So that's not even a network breach, but then that goes into how well is your staff trained?
Yeah.
okay, yes, let's go. Priya, you had a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question. So I'm not too familiar with how the medical industry approaches like insurance or cyber insurance, like ransomware insurance. I think ransomware is probably not the most common attack towards hospitals. It would probably be attacks that probably affect their IoT devices. So do they have cyber insurance in case of those attacks?
I'm sure they do, but that's like the one thing to note is that I think a lot of cyber insurance companies should really have their own red teams and stipulate in the terms of the insurance agreement by agreeing to this insurance contract, you agree to have your network periodically assessed, because otherwise the reason why cyber insurance keeps going up and up and up is because the companies aren't doing enough to proactively prevent breaches.
So as we get ready to move on to the next question, but I'll just kind of leave you with this, and it'll come back up because all of these questions kind of have the same. You're going to find that we circle back, okay? But the thing is that with critical infrastructure, there's only up the food chain, so to speak, power chain, information chain. There's only so much the hospital can impact. Sometimes there's things going to happen like the LA fires or natural disasters that happen that go beyond the ability of the IT staff at the hospital to keep things running. And the fact that these guys are trained to operate in these types of environments, I think that is really a testament that we need to sit and think for a moment. And by the way, thank all of our emergency response providers for dealing with that, because there's a technical aspect here, but there's also an environment aspect here where sometimes there's just nothing you can do but deal with the loss of and availability of the information, of the power or the network. And sometimes no matter if you do everything perfect, okay, you've hired the pen testers and they've caught all these, and we have this super tight network. And it's going to get into the next question here, but ultimately sometimes things go beyond the hospital's control. And then sometimes, on the flip side, it can be the simplest user at the hospital that brings the whole thing down. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and transition to question 4, which, Alan, you want to take?
Sure. Okay, question number 4 is going to get a little bit more into phishing and social engineering, okay? How could phishing emails or fraudulent calls targeting the ER staff or any of the hospital staff lead to broader critical infrastructure disruptions? What realistic training can reduce that kind of risk? Okay.
So this summer, during a certification exam this summer, I had to do a simulated, mock phishing attack in which I sent an email containing a link over not a web link but a different protocol, a file share. Basically, you can in certain email client servers, and this is particularly true of Microsoft Exchange. You can send a file share link to an email, spin up a rogue file share, and what happens is the user at the other end ends up sending their password, the encrypted form of their password, the password hash essentially gets sent to the attacker. And the scary part about this is the file share can look completely legitimate. It can host legitimate looking documents, and the user ends up getting hacked by clicking that link. So the number 1 is always verify, which, yeah.
Go ahead.
If I can help with this, because there's a lot of technical terms.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Okay, what's file sharing? And how,
So-
and do hospitals still use
Yeah.
file sharing?
I don't think, I'm not sure if they do or they don't, but so so micro, yeah.
Well, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so,
Well, just recently,
yeah.
the Ascension, one phishing email led to 142 hospitals shut down for 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And cost $1.8 billion. And in 2024, 50% of health care employees clicked phishing links.
Yeah. Another thing too, and this is going, so TLDR regarding my explanation is that sometimes phishing links to instead of going to a browser, it'll if you were to click of one of these links, it would open up in File Explorer basically. If that happens, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter what kind of you won't even need to log, you won't even need to put in your information. It'll get sent over anyway. The worst part about that is they can, if you end up getting compromised and impersonated by, then it can be nasty.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Kenny.
Yeah.
I think that as far as mitigating phishing, I think the most effective strategy would be, monthly 5-minute, modules that go over the risks of clicking on links versus, a 1 2-hour or 1 hour thing per year, because that constant refresher, and it'll only take 5 minutes a month.
Yeah.
Julie, I'm going to turn over to you if you don't mind. I'm going to put you somewhat on the spot. Over there in the nursing area.
How many phishing links have you clicked?
Sure. To be honest, what cybersecurity was saying, it's good to have the little reminders. Like, for example, when I'm working in the hospital, we do have phishing simulations per se. Like, we would get emails from either as cyber or IT or something like that, that we have to kind of gauge is there a spelling error, or is this link look odd? Let's report it. And then it will take you to good job. You found a phishing link, and so we do practice that every couple months. So sprinkle that in our emails. And so we focus on, making sure we don't click if something looks odd or something like that, we'll always report it. But yeah.
Riley, have you dealt with phishing at the hospital or healthcare?
Me, myself, not necessarily besides the initial training for our clinical sites. So they occasionally touch up on it. It's not super in depth. It really depends on the hospital system. But again, my experience before was with EMS. They did like nothing. Their training was very minimal. They didn't worry too much about it. We didn't use any of our own devices. They wouldn't really send us emails. We had our own system on the devices they had with us. But again, other than that, was not much.
Okay, thanks. Britt, did you want to add anything on that?
Well, I actually had a few questions. When I'm working in the hospital, I don't have time to look at email. So and I actually don't see other staff checking email either. So I'm curious to know, would the phishing be coming through some kind of a web-based access to email? Or because it seems like when we get into the computers, the links are very specific to where we need to go. And like LexiComp is all.
So I can answer that.
Okay.
So regarding so there are some hospital staff have more access to emails than others. Obviously, you're in the trenches. You know, you're constantly tending to patients, so you wouldn't have time to sit down and look at email. But someone like on the other hand, a front desk hospital, you know, if a receptionist who's having to constantly check patients in and out all day, they've got more time. They're at their computer. They're checking emails, you know, constantly. Same thing with you know, the administration at the hospital. They could be they're the ones who are more susceptible to this than maybe nurses or PAs or, you know, people, doctors, whatever.
That's a good point. Because all it takes is one entry point.
Yep.
And then it's this cascading effect. But these aren't just emails. These could be the social engineering aspect is somebody could call.
Yeah.
You know, you could get a call and it could be from a spoofed number and it you know, from another department in the hospital. Or it could be somebody in person that is, you know, pretending to be somebody they're not. So it's not just emails that you have to be aware of.
Yeah. And I'll add to that too. So someone could call, someone could send you a text, someone could send you a text message, smishing. They could call you. They could also send they could also literally visit the place in person. I've got a classic example. Before I came back in 2021, 2022, I was a multi-app delivery driver for DoorDash, Uber Eats, Amazon Flex. That's the scariest one. Imagine someone were to wear an Amazon vest holding what looks like a package, and they get let physically into the place, only to then plant, say, some kind of attack cable like an OMG and take advantage and compromise your network that way, you know? Yeah.
Kenny, we're going to ask, what's an OMG?
Yeah. So I've actually got a YouTube video on my own channel about that, but there are certain like things that look like charging cables, but are in fact hardware with built-in means to compromise systems. It's crazy, but yes, that does exist.
Yeah, so you could have somebody posing as a janitor coming into the nursing station and switching one of the phone chargers out, you know?
Yeah.
And then you plug your phone into that and it's all over.
Yep.
And these cables look exactly like the regular cables, like the regular iPhone cables or the Samsung cables. Yeah. All of the hardware is built into the bottom where the USB is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's almost like having your own, I mean, it's like Things that the CIA would do that are their tactics, techniques, and procedures from 30 years ago is now available to any hacker for about, how much are those cables? What, $20?
They're actually a bit more than like I got it at DEF CON. I think it was like $240. They are a bit pricey, but they're like you look at one of these cables and you look at an iPhone cable, like one of the stock iPhone cables that comes with your iPhone, they look identical. And but the only difference is this thing, it actually is designed to spoof a mouse or a keyboard. Basically, it presents itself to the computer like a keyboard, like as a human interface device. And when you plug, so a mouse, keyboard, something along those lines. So when you plug that cable in, it injects mouse inputs and keystrokes. It can also log your keystrokes, key log you, steal your password, see what you're, so it's, yeah.
Regardless, that sounds cheap for a potential $12 million ransom.
Oh, yeah.
Abby, I'm gonna, before we throw it out there, Abby, do you have any other comments about phishing attacks that you've experienced in the hospital environment or a healthcare environment?
Yeah, I also, I work in a hospital and they'll send out we get them monthly, weekly, depending. It's just their own fake phishing emails they'll send out. And like Julie said at the top, it'll say is this report as suspicious? And then you'll get that congratulations, you've reported or you detected a phishing email. So I think even that, even maybe weekly or monthly, because, you can check your work email at home, you can check it at the hospital. So I think sending those out more frequently can definitely help to kind of detect, real phishing emails.
Okay, thank you. Valeria, I've talked, I think, to everybody else. Can I check in with you too?
Yeah, I actually have a question for them because it says here that you can get hacked by the call. How is it that they hack you through the call? Is it just them tricking you into giving them information?
Correct.
Or if they keep you on the line?
Yes, they literally will constantly tell you, they'll try to keep you on for as long as possible, and they'll try to provide some kind of pretext for you giving out information that you otherwise wouldn't.
So there's a video on YouTube that is pretty eye-opening to all this, and there's a hacking competition convention every year in Las Vegas that everybody in the industry goes to. Bad guys, good guys, everybody's there. There's a video of this reporter interviewing somebody about social engineering and specifically phishing. So what she does is she pulls out her laptop, puts up audio of a baby crying in the background from her laptop, and then from there calls this guy's cell phone provider, and through that is able to get access to the account just by being slick, by being convincing. And from there, she gets added to the account as his wife and then set up with her own credentials to be able to log in to his cell phone provider anytime she wants. So, yeah, it's pretty wild how in depth it goes, even over voice.
I think everybody in Southern California can sleep easy because all of these nurses said that they receive training, but through my research, I found that only 41% of hospitals currently conduct phishing simulations.
Wow. I think we have some questions out there. So hold on just a minute and I'll bring you on the mic.
Yeah, so this convention that you mentioned, were you referring to what DEF CON is?
So there's this major in Vegas every year. There's this major it's a conference that's like that people from all around the world converge on every year of, cybersecurity professionals from Europe, Asia, India and the United States, all coming together to basically for 5 days have we have every wall to wall capture the flag competitions. It's it's a blast, but you really learn. It's really something that that's where I bought this cable that I mentioned previously.
So it's essentially a conglomeration of just hackathons and learning seminars.
It's mainly capture the flags, as I said, and then there's also like a bunch of it's just a big gathering of cybersecurity professionals.
Think of like E3 or Anime Expo or anything like that. Comic-Con.
But for cybersecurity.
For cybersecurity.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of times when you get these phone calls, it'll be like a sense of urgency. Like, you need to do this now. Come on, hurry up. Or you're going to get fired. So it's either these appeal to authorities arguments or a sense of urgency. To try to get you to act before you think.
Or like in the case of the video, a desperate mother just trying to help out her husband.
Yeah, because I'm thinking of the ER, like the ER nurses, they coordinate care with outside hospitals, outside resources, EMS. So I'm just thinking like, well, any of these people could be calling in, trying to get information about people.
Yeah.
So we don't.
Avery, I see your hand up.
We don't just give out patient information when people call. Like if somebody's on the phone with a baby crying, you're not going to make me move faster. If the patient hasn't told me that that person has permission to have any information about them being there, I don't give it, period. We all get trained that way. So I know this is something to worry about, and people have interesting techniques and tactics, but we as nurses are trained to sift through all that nonsense. And also HIPAA is on our shoulders all the time. So we don't want to get the hospital in trouble, our patient in trouble. We're trying to do everything by the book. So,
that is before somebody does an attack like this, they do their research and they do extensive research before trying to do an attack like this. It's not like the one day, I'm going to call this hospital and figure it out. No, either they know somebody that's in that hospital at the time through scrolling Facebook, and they find out that this person from Facebook is in the hospital, this hospital specifically. They go down the rabbit hole of like, okay, who's the wife? Who's the mother? Who would be their next of kin? Who would have the permission to get that information for you? And then how do I spoof my persona to prove to you that I am that person?
I mean, I also don't think this is just about divulging HIPAA information. Like I said at the beginning, one phishing email led to 142 hospitals being shut down for 4 weeks.
Yeah, the phishing is that the number one way that happens is they literally phish. They steal passwords, credentials, and log in. They impersonate you and log in as their. My mic volume okay? Okay, yeah. So they literally will log in as the victim, and it's it's.
I mean,
it's crazy
if you can think of every way to not let this happen, I guarantee you there's somebody thinking of a way to get it and figure out how to make it happen.
Okay, Avery?
So so my question was, we're describing phishing attacks right now.
All right.
Why wouldn't it be effective if these hospitals started implementing policies where they had like 1 or 2 days a year, we're going to have a phishing training for all of our employees, and so that you know how to recognize phishing scams. Wouldn't that be effective at preventing them?
They literally, there are nurses on this panel literally just mentioned that.
Yeah, and what I had mentioned that doing 5 minutes a month works better than 1 hour or 2 hour per year thing.
Could I just add, I think the first thing I noticed reading this question was network segmentation would be a very important addition for if a phishing email contains malware and spreads throughout the devices in the hospital. But I don't think many hospitals invest in that level of IT or security.
I'm sure they do, but network segmentation is like that like unless there's unless the segments are air gapped from each other, it does slow an attacker down, but it is quite easy to circumvent, as I know firsthand.
And if anybody wants to know what network segmentation is, it's completely removing the devices from being able to talk to either the outside internet or other devices within the same network.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So can I just conclude the discussion for phishing? So everyone mentioned very good point on phishing attacks and also social engineering.
Like
and also I agree with you that you will train, and all of you have been trained on identifying, detecting the phishing attacks. But, when we talk about attacks, we think of passwords, we think of systems, but attackers actually, before hacking the system, they hack the humans behind that computers, and they use psychological techniques, persuasion techniques, the same psychology that runs hospitals, runs healthcare. So for instance, empathy in ER, empathy, sympathy, urgency, all are these common psychology that is used for nurses to take care of patients, but these are the exact same skills that attackers use in order to exploit that. So what they do is just to turn the cognition off and turn the emotion on. So they're gonna increase. So it's very normal. You can detect the phishing emails when you are at home, when you are checking your emails, when the cognition is calm. However, under pressure, actually it increases the risk. So what they do, and Benham actually was describing with the baby crying, or John also mentioned the point of urgency. So what they do, increase the pressure. So turn the people's cognition off and turn their emotion on, so they can make the decision without thinking, under pressure.
Okay.
So that's something that I think every organization, including healthcare, need to train their staff in order to decrease the level of risk at that moment.
And to add to that, it's what's even crazier now is with the rise of AI. When Benham mentioned spoofing voices, that's so much easier to do now because they can use AI voice cloning to basically deep fake the person and pretend to be them. It's crazy.
I think what it boils down to is just not giving up that password.
Yeah.
Exactly. Regardless, no matter what. So say, like Dr. Monfred said, if it's a patient's life or death and a doctor, and like Kenny said, if somebody spoofed the doctor's voice that you are familiar with, and they're like, oh, I can't get into the system. I need the password. And they're calling you. The patient's going to die. I need the password. Like that's like, those are the things that you have to be careful about. And that would be like a hospital's password policy, but that just don't give out the passwords.
Yeah, and guys, we're actually out of time. We have just a couple more minutes.
Yeah, we're over time.
We have just a couple more minutes, and just real quick, John, I know you had your hand up. I'll go ahead and answer as many questions as I can, but we're literally minutes away from being over time. So go ahead, John. You had a question.
Yeah, this is more for the nurses. So as far as I know the guys were talking a lot about spoofing, and I know a lot of the social engineering has to do with emotions. Like another one would be fear. Like I'd study you. And do you have any family members, children? That's a little bit dark, and I know a lot of people, will probably, say, oh, no, I won't divulge. But in the moment, like I said, they'll go.
I will not divulge in the moment, no.
Okay.
I do have kids. I know what it's like to have kids screaming in the background. I understand that we're trying to create a lot of awareness and have an open discussion about, lots of loopholes and stuff, but as nurses, we are trained to be in situations like this. And some of us are a little better at it than others.
Exactly.
And I don't know, it's because maybe of my age, I'm a little older, but I'm not going to crack under pressure. And I would encourage everybody else that I'm in class with as well to do the same thing and to continue to practice what we're learning and to use every situation of emotional, I don't know what the word you want to use for it,
Disconnect.
appeal to emotion to try to get what they want from us. It's not going to happen with me.
No, yeah, and so that kind of leads it. What
Yeah.
has anyone gotten away? Like, for example, like, has anyone ever impersonated one of you, like, and you caught them maybe, or maybe missing inventory, or someone that got in? How do you guys deal with that? Do you have like security, police on site all constantly, or?
So on the hospitals, there is always a security staff. I've never been to a single facility that hasn't had one. I feel like a lot of the techniques for dealing with this sort of stuff is covered in our basic training for protecting HIPAA. You can have family members that'll come up and try to get access to their patient information. Maybe the patient doesn't want them in the room. Even if their mother, their spouse, if they're not wanted, you cannot divulge that information. So just by default, we have to be very conscious with what we talk, especially if a family member somehow manages to call us. Typically, that would be forwarded from the actual hospital. They don't have our private numbers. Don't give your private number out to anyone, mainly because it's still following that HIPAA. So I feel like there's a lot of crossover between being conscious about what you're saying to patients at all times and then protecting like from phishing.
Okay, Ryan, our last question.
Yeah, I think it was Kenny who mentioned the possibility of somebody replicating a voice through AI. And what I find very interesting about that is that, let's say a hacker does their thing and finds a bunch of information about a doctor, and let's say they have children and finds information about them. What a hacker can do is they can feed the AI information about their family and sort of replicate the personalities as well of these children, and sort of use that to gain access to, or sort of build empathy throughout the doctor and gain access to the systems that the doctor has access to. And they could also do this with patients as well. They could research patients and replicate their family's personality, or even their personality themselves, and use this to contact doctors and figure out more information about the patients, such as like medical issues they're having, or literally anything. The possibilities with AI and how that's going to affect the cyberspace are quite astonishing.
Yeah,
nice.
So I don't quite think there was a question there, but I will just kind of say in closing is that, there's a cultural aspect to this as well. I mean, here we're in very highly populated Southern California. The hospital staff hospital staff are pretty hardened, and thank goodness we have vigilant hospital staff that are the frontline defenders of our information, just like we have our cyber students are on the front line of ensuring that pen testing are done. But if you think, I can tell you my hometown of East Tennessee, my mother knows everybody at that hospital. She knows everybody at the courthouse. Anytime I need something, oh, I know so-and-so, let's call them. So given that sort of culture, which maybe, it's not prevalent here, but it's prevalent around the country, where, there's definitely if you haven't lived it, you probably don't know what I'm talking about. But literally, I could probably get a one-on-one phone call with a hospital administrator at my hometown just because that person went to school with my mother in high school. So it's, there's culture in it as well. But I want to thank, again, everybody for being here. Know that that all of this was in good faith, and we weren't, no one was trying to accuse anyone of not being executing their due diligence, because it is, we're all very protective of our fields, and we need to be, right? We have to work together. And this session, this symposium was really meant to bring awareness. There's no solutions sitting across here other than just to be adamant, be alert. We could talk about these topics for another hour, but ultimately it's on the individual to ensure that they do their best to not, click on emails. I don't even know why to me, a solution is don't allow links inside an email, period. Be done with it. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, if I get an email that looks suspicious, and especially if it contains a link and it's from somebody I don't recognize, I just delete it.
Yeah. Well, even now, they can make it look like it's somebody that you recognize. Okay? Every time and I know we're already over time, but I mean, every time that we install something, we think that we're getting something for free. We think that is Google Chrome free? No, it's not. You're selling something about you every single time you use that browser. Is all this software that we get, we think it's free. We're in a free society. Let's get free software. Let's get free apps on our phone. Every time you do that, if you read the fine print, your data is being sold. There's a reason why you were looking at sneakers on Amazon, and next time you open up a browser, or you're getting emails or text about sneakers. There's a reason. So we just need to be adamant. We need to be vigilant is the word I'm looking for.
Can I add one last thing about the whole password compromisation? Is don't obviously share your passwords with people, but also don't use the same password throughout accounts or even devices, because if one of them gets compromised, all of them will be compromised.
Okay. So Alan, do you want to go ahead and
Wrap it up.
wrap it up?
Wrap it up if you like.
Okay, well, everyone, thank you. I'm not sure how long does it take for this to be, is this being saved on YouTube, or is it just live stream and then
It's probably going to take a couple days.
take a few days? Okay.
It is live though now. I actually shared the link on LinkedIn.
All right. So guys, everyone, thank you again for your attendance. And if you're in my class, make sure that you signed, in Dr. Monfred's class, make sure that you're signing the sheet outside to get your credit. Okay. Thank you. Wait.
One last thing. There is pizza after this outside. There is refreshments, pizza, water, things like that. So please stick around. We will certainly all be here and certainly willing to talk more about this. Thank you all for coming, and have a good evening. Thank you.